Okay, today we're going to talk a little bit about making a homemade thread chaser, and we're going to go through about 3 or 4 different things. First and foremost, you're looking at the floor, but I'll introduce the tool right now. From the end, you'll see it's kind of a semicircle with 2 flats on the bottom for some relief. Pretty well polished surface on the top, and just threaded. This is just a piece of tool steel, and you take a tap and die set, and basically you're going to cut threads onto the rod. And once you've cut your threads onto the rod, adding oil and carefully to make sure that they come out nice and clean. You can either grind the flat across the top at about halfway down the diameter, or you can hacksaw it, or you can use a Dremel with a cutoff wheel. But in any case, the purpose is to make the top flat and about half the diameter. And then I grind the bottoms to almost like a triangle, just so that they're not in the way as I cut. They probably wouldn't be in the way anyway, but in my experience it just makes me feel comfortable. And then stuff it into a little wooden handle here. Nothing terribly elegant. Before anybody bothers to ask, no, this is not hardened steel. No, I don't know what kind of steel it is, but it's a good steel. I've made them out of some 01 or some drill rod, and the nice thing is that you cut your own threads. They come out a lot cleaner than a commercial bolt, which is where I started. I bought a grade 5 bolt and started grinding that, and then I decided those threads were pretty sloppy and yielded some pretty bad results, and so I ended up buying a grade 8 bolt, and same thing. And I realized I had all this tool steel laying around, so why not cut my own threads? And that seems to have definitely given me the best results. So here we are. This is kind of phase 1, which is the whole idea that you have to start with the tool, and making this is probably about 30 minutes worth of work. The nice thing about it is it will cut on the this side. It'll cut the male side of the thread, and on this side it'll cut the female side of the thread. And you only have to learn one motion, which is to feed the tool directly into the wood as you're turning it. So you feed on this side to cut over here, you feed on that side to cut over there. You master the one motion and you're all set to go. Okay, phase 2. Okay, on to phase 2. We have a block of maple in the headstock there, and it's being held in the chuck. I think there's about a 1-inch hole in it. The lathe speed is set to the slowest that I can get, and what I'm going to do real quick is relieve the edge. By relieving the edge, it gives me a better way to enter the cut, and I will show you how we enter the cut now. The tool is set up on center line. It goes in at about a 45-degree angle. And it just gets pushed to make that cut. So what you'll see is that in just a couple of quick seconds, we've cut some threads in this maple here. See if I can't get them to show up a little bit better on close-up here. doing the best we can with the camera, but they're pretty good threads. So the neat thing about this system is going to be the way we actually cut the second part of the threading on the male part here, because what we'll do is we'll actually fit that thread to this thread. So there's no calipers, there's no real measuring involved. And give me a minute and I'll be back and I'll have the male piece ready to go. Okay, grabbed another block of maple and turned down to a roughly sized tenon. You will notice that it doesn't fit, it doesn't thread, but on the end of the tenon there's a slight taper right here, little relief so that I can sneak up on the size of the cut, because if I make it too small then it just flops straight over. The last thing we're going to do real quick, and I'll do this while I'm standing here, is you want to make a little escape cut at the bottom. And what that'll do, you see it here kind of in close-up, is it gives this thing a way to come out of the cut without blowing the threads off. So as I come down this cut, when I get to the bottom, it doesn't stop and then tear all the threads off. Little relief cut there, makes a world of difference. And if you give me a couple of minutes, I'll figure out how to rig up the camera here, and we'll try to show. Okay, always the problem when we do these videos is that I'm turning with one hand and shooting with the other. But a lot of the times, I think that really works out in my favor. If I can do it cutting one-handed and shooting with the other one, then it can't be that hard, right? See as the threads get deeper and deeper is that the tool basically pulls itself all the way into the cut, and having that little relief at the bottom really helps. So let's stop here for a second. Threads aren't fully cut yet, but it's a good time to show you how this works. What we can do now is we can try our other block, and what I can see is that we're still quite a bit larger. So all we do is we cut some more. And let's give it another try here. Just starting to catch that first thread. Now what I'm actually doing is I'm fitting this the same way I might fit a lid to a box. If you look at this carefully, you'll see it's slightly tapered, and I can actually straighten that out as I get my exact size. I'm going to make some cuts here and try to got a minute left here. See if we can't get the first couple of threads on. Now I'm going to straighten the tool out so I get rid of some of that taper. Lather, rinse, repeat. Take a little bit because it's a lot easier to take wood off than it is to put wood back on. Okay, we're running out of chip. We'll finish the video in the next section. Okay, while you guys were gone, I made some cleanup cuts while I had two hands, and we're just about there. When you get to this stage, you'll see it'll thread most of the way down. You can continue to make your cuts. But one of the things that I like to do when I get to this point is get some wax on my threads. I think it really helps how it cuts, and I think it really helps how it threads on. So I just grabbed that. That's just beeswax, a little bit of mineral oil, about a 50-50 cut. And now I should be able to get this to thread on without all that noise. And just work it back and forth. And that is how you make a homemade threading tool, either out of an old bolt or just a threaded piece of steel. So the more you work this, the better it's going to be. Now this happens to be a nice piece of curly maple. I don't know if you're picking up the curl there. And I did it end grain. You'll see that the threads they're not half bad, but in this one they get a little bit fuzzy. So what I like to do on the boxes that I make that have threaded inserts is I will take this and I'll cut it side grain, and then I'll inlay it into the box. And I think end grain maple cuts the female threads way better. But that's that. The last thing we're going to talk about before we go is that to sharpen this, the only thing I'm going to do is either put down some very fine sandpaper on my bed and just polish it up that way, or run a flat diamond file over the top of it, because I want to keep that edge nice and flat, and I never ever want to touch those teeth. Right, this has been making a homemade threading tool, and hopefully you've learned something and enjoyed the video. Thanks, and we'll talk to you soon.